I'm very happy and excited to be alive today, to be working with you on this important topic. I'm always encouraged, enlivened by coming to church. I was especially inspired last week because so many people were engaged in the message and the things we were discussing. And this makes me very happy because my belief is we are all, each one of us in our own way, waking up to the truth. So can I have an amen? Amen? So you believe that too. That's what that amen means, is that yes, I'm on board. Yes, I'm waking up. And I believe collectively on planet Earth we are waking up, even though it doesn't always look like it. And I might probably have an amen on that too, right? Because so what tends to be reported on is what's negative, but there's a lot of positive happening. And there's a lot of God energy that's rising to the top, and we're going to be seeing it more and more and more. And I have total faith in that. I was thinking today, if the author ever bothers to check in on what we're doing here, everything I just said is very characteristic of my character fixation. So I'm really aware of how I am my own worst enemy in terms of moving forward. I think we all are, because we tend to live from old thoughts, old beliefs, old mindsets, old ways of behaving, and they're left over from when we were about this big. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Some of us, 60, 70, 80s, it doesn't matter. We deal with this throughout our lifetime. And the cool thing is, your soul was so smart that you figured out a way to survive. So just go like this, like I survived, okay? I survived, but here's the thing. I would rather thrive than survive, right? Because surviving means I don't know what's next. I'm always in a state of confusion, and I will do anything I can to make it. Okay, but we are out of survival mode. We want to move into thrive mode, which means we want to be living from our soul and not our mind egoic stuff, right? We want to be living from the highest spiritual place we know. So as we look at this, and somebody helped me. I'm using a pointer today, and they said, it might help if you used, there we go. Now, if you have cats, though, all you're thinking right now is that the cat is going to go after this. Okay, my cat loves this stuff. Anything moving is a target, including my feet under the covers. Okay, but anyway. So we're going to focus today on 8. I'm going to start actually with 9, then go to 8, and then go to 1. And the reason we're going to focus on these 3 today, and these are called character fixations. You can see here on this banner, or here, all 3 of these are based in anger. Well, we know ultimately they're all based in fear, because anger even is just a cover for fear, isn't it? Right, so ultimately these are all based in fear. So we're looking at these, and the banner even says, learn what you are not, live what you are. So the idea is that we want to be living from our highest spiritual self, from our soul, and yet all of us, I was going to say so many, all of us are still living from old programming. And if you find yourself here, what I know is you're on a powerful journey already. I know that you've already been digging deep and saying, the way I've been doing life, it isn't working. I want a new way. I know that about you if you're here. Is that true? Yes, of course. You say, the way I was brought up, there were some wonderful things, there were some tough things, but I'm a grown-up now. And I get to decide now how I want to be in the world. And I'm not going to live from this old character fixation that wants to run my show all the time. So that's when we talk about soul growth, it means we're trying new things. And listen to me, friends, it doesn't matter if you're 3 or 30 or 60 or 90, there's still something new for you. Because it's not necessarily about an outward doing, not necessarily, well, unless you're a 9, and then it is. But it might be about the way you manage, work with, or live into your emotional, your feeling reality is what I like to call it, right? So we want to look at what each of these things are. And before we get any further, I do want to read a couple little sections from the book. This is the book we're reading. It's called Fixation to Freedom. The author is really amazing. And I'm going to be interviewing him in 2 weeks. It'll be airing on the podcast at the end of the month. So I'm reading from page 30. And it says, character fixation is the egoic masking of true character. True character resides at the level of the soul. Then further down the page it says, character fixation helps to keep the sense of me safely unexamined by providing a positive image to identify with, whether overtly or secretly. Each fixation has an idealization, an internalized story that makes it seem good and right and covers what is really going on. Okay, I'm going to make sure you heard that last bit. Each fixation has an idealization, an internalized story that makes it seem good and right and covers what is really going on. I'll give you some personal examples, but mostly I'm going to give you examples of the individual types because I want to really focus on 9, 8, and 1 today. So number 9, what 9 is often called in other materials the peacemaker. The 9 is always making peace. And you notice its place between the 8 and the 1 around this Pythagorean symbol. So this was started by Pythagoras over 2,000 years ago. So one of Pythagoras' students created this symbol. And by the way, it's all based in mathematics. So, and Pythagoras believed that the universe, Pythagoras was the first person to call it the cosmos, could be explained mathematically. So that's why this symbol is such as this. So 9 is very often the peacemaker. And you see, 9 is the core of anger. And you say, well, why, if the core is anger, would it be called the peacemaker? Because the anger is suppressed and repressed so much that they have an amazing absence of anger in the world. So outwardly, it looks really good. And as a matter of fact, the peacemaker would say, oh, I never get angry. If that's a statement of yours, you might be a peacemaker. You might be a 9. But again, this is not a judgment point. This is an awareness point. Nothing wrong with that. We all have one of these, friends. So just wait till we get to your number. Whoa, okay. So as I'm saying all of this, I want you to remember, I'm just going to get comfortable. The Enneagram is really a sacred tool. It's not the only tool. It's a wonderful tool. And it is a wisdom mirror when you begin to see some of your habits, some of your tendencies, or hear me speak about them or see them on the page before you. So the 9s, because they can't really deal with life on life's terms, they tend to go to sleep, sometimes physically. 9s tend to sleep a lot. They also tend to be depressed, procrastinate, and have a hard time getting going. You might say, oh, I've known a 9. I've been with a 9. I know how we think about these things. Or my mother was a 9, or my dad was a 9, right? And so often as children, 9s were peacemakers between the parents, trying to make everything okay for everybody so whatever was in the house could calm down. So this character fixation comes from a very real place, and 9s are scared of big emotions. A 9 will run from the room if there's a big emotion, big anger, right? So 9s not only suppress, I will say even repress anger and anger moments. And then what happens is sometimes months and often years later, the anger will surface over something very, very tiny. And here comes the volcano. Explode. And it seems to everybody around out of nowhere, my God, what happened to that person? They're always so easygoing and everything, and suddenly, kablamo. Right? So that's the behavior of a 9. It gets to the point where the emotion has been so suppressed, it has to go somewhere. Right? So it will usually explode. So the 9, the other interesting thing, I'm going to spend a lot of time in the 9. This is such a critical point to understand. You see how it's between the 8 and the 1. Well, the 8 is external anger, and the 1 is internal. So the 9 vacillates between trying to appease both those. Not only those, really all the types. As a matter of fact, often people will say to me, I connect with every one of these types. I said, well, then you might be a 9. Because you melt into whatever type you're with. Whatever, like, keeps the thing moving and everybody okay. And then you look for the other characteristics, are you kind of lethargic? Do you procrastinate? And often, too, what 9s will do, if there's something going on really important, they'll go do something completely non-essential, like rearrange their sock drawer just for no apparent reason, while there's an emergency going on. Or maybe they have a job interview, and they notice something in their kid's room, and they start reading it, and pretty soon they're late for the best job interview they've ever had just because they were reading an article and couldn't pull out of that article in Boy's Life or something. So they get wrapped up in the non-essentials because they've lost their voice. So for a 9, so again, why are we learning this? So for a 9, there might be, the soul growth point might be to find your voice. It might be to actually make a plan to do something. 9s are not about plans. They like go with the flow, man. There was a story of a couple in the book. It was really interesting. 2 9s that were married, and they got a divorce, which the therapist said, I can't believe you got a divorce. They go, well, it's been 6 years, but we're still living together. Didn't want to rock the boat that much, So, but what appears on the surface, remember, as a 9 is very cool and like peacemaking and everything's fine. But if there's hard emotions, the 9s back up. Again, this is not any worse or better than any other type. Somebody asked me that last week. I said, no, one's not better than any others. And they all work together. So a 9, see in the middle, there's actually this triangle. So the 9 can go to maybe over here in stress and maybe over here feeling safe and happy, right? So this is, these are all based in fear, 6, 7, and 5, 7, 6, 5 if you go that way. This 6 can be pretty neurotic. Yeah, this is a lot of fear right here. So these 3 points, 9, 6, and 3 are all the core points. So see, this is core image, this is core fear, this is core anger. So the other thing, all these 3 types, 9, 8, and 1, all are considered body points because anger is first felt in the body, right? And so often these points, especially if they start to become spiritual, they'll say, I feel it in my body. If you're somebody that says things like that, chances are you might be one of these points. So 9s have a really hard time saying what they feel. As a matter of fact, some 9s are so placating to everyone around them, they don't even know how they feel. So some of the therapeutic work for a 9 is having a feeling, number 1, and then being willing to state it, and maybe even having healthy anger. Usually the reason 9s don't have healthy anger is because the anger they saw as children was explosive and felt dangerous and scary. Right? So it's like, okay, I'm not going to be that. And they see anger as bad when anger is, in fact, human. And if we don't bring it forward, can do some damage, to us personally, actually. High blood pressure, stroke, ulcers, all these things, when held in, all these feelings we're discussing, they are harmful to you physically. There's a phrase in the scriptures. It's actually in a little-known gospel called the Gospel of Thomas. It says, if you do not bring forth that which is within you, what is within you will destroy you. If you bring forth that which is within you, what is within you will save you. It's a beautiful scripture, and that's exactly why we look at these things. Because we don't want to go around asleep. We want to wake up. We want to wake up. So that's the 9. All right, so very slow to anger, if at all, and when they get angry, watch out. Duck. That's what I have to say. Now, and this is often called the peacemaker. The 8, often called the boss, is very outwardly focused. An 8 would say, never go to bed mad, stay up and fight. The eights love to get it going verbally. They love a verbal challenge. And if you're not sure who won, don't worry, they'll tell you. They did. They did. The eights are the blamers on the Enneagram. The eights are the blamers. Everybody's wrong, and they have a personal position on everything, which, of course, is opposite of the 9 who has a personal position on nothing, right? So the 8 is like the shadow side of the 9, right? The 8 is like, bam. If you don't know what they think yet, wait just a second. You will. You will. And so for the 8s, they really carry a lot of personal power. And so 8s are some of the most powerful people I know. And somebody's saying, So you don't want to get in a sparring match, though. It's just not good. But 8s have a lot of personal power. And so 8s in general are scared and see feelings as they're scared of feelings and see feelings as weak. And 8s are the one point on the Enneagram that almost always rejoice when they hear about their type. Yeah, it's like, you're right, I'm tough, back up, right? You see, it's the 8 just behaving just like an 8, right? So I love you for that, because we all have this. Hear me, we all have our stuff, but that's about the 8 because they love to be out there. And 8s also are a wonderful fight for justice, right? So it's like, yes, this is right, this is wrong, and I'm willing to put myself on the line for it. So 8s can be really strong in social justice, so there's a lot of positive to all of these. But what we want to do again is say, what is the soul growth to this particular character fixation? So one is to learn that not every moment everybody wants to know what you think. There might be a time to back it up, rein it in, and to know that you're not going to die if people don't know your opinion. And that it is really not up to you to point out everybody's mistakes, whether they want to know them or not. So the 8 is really about learning to be vulnerable and knowing you're safe. Yeah, so the 8, I want to mention this here too, because the band is called Sleeping at Last. They did a song for each one of the Enneagram points, and they are beautiful. Just beautiful. We played one in the class on Wednesday night. Of course, we played the one for the 7, because that's my type, and 7s can be really narcissistic. So the 8, really learning to be vulnerable and knowing you're okay, not having to armor up so big. So learning to know when it's time to speak and when not to speak, learning that you're safe in your vulnerability. To an 8, this can sound, who's not done any work, this sounds scary. To an 8 who's done some work, it's like, yeah, I tried that out and I was okay. It was weird at first, but I was okay. They still needed my help, but I was okay. You see, so there's growth in each of these points. Again, I talked a little bit about how these relate. The 8, again, also relates to the other points. So the thing to remember is, and somebody asked me this after the first service, I thought it was a good question, are you only one type? The answer is yes. Everybody has a single fixation, but you can even be an 8 with what's called a wing, which means you might have a strong 7 influence. But in general, everybody has one strong character fixation, but the 8 will go in times of safety towards a 2, which is more of a helper type. And in stress, they go to the negative side of a 5. And 5 is an observer, right? So imagine the 8 combined with a 5. They sit and look at everything you're doing wrong and then tell you about it. This is no bueno. But in their time of stress, all they can see is what is wrong with everything, right? So, And again, this is survival. This is survival mode. You can see how if you grew up in a certain way, having to armor against a lot of emotional chaos, you would try to figure out what was wrong so you could know what to do, right? So that's what I mean. I have a lot of compassion for each of these types. Okay, and so the 8 might go towards a 5 or towards a 2. Now the 1, if the 8s are the blamers, the 1 is the judge. The 1 has to have everything perfect. And if you're not sure, just watch them for a few minutes. They'll be rearranging the silverware at a party. They will be, 1s are also usually very tightly coiffed, you know. Even 1s tend to have kind of thin lips. They're kind of pursed in general, just, you know, kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I can say that in church. Okay, anal retentive. But for the 1, the anger is all inward. It doesn't go outward. They're the good boys and girls. So the 1s are the good boys and girls, the 8s are the bad ones. And right out of the book, I'm not making this up. So these are the bad boys and girls, these are the bad boys and girls, these are the good ones. Again, not really, but behaviorally, that's how it starts to look. But in all of them is good, is God, is soul. Remember that. Remember that. So the 1s can be a little on the neurotic side because they are so busy judging themselves. And they also have a sense of justice and right from wrong. You know, you'll often find a 1, you know, at the lead of like a nonprofit. So a wonderful, or the 8 too, for that matter. Oh, you know what I forgot to say too about, well, on the 1. For instance, the 1, they tend to be so perfectly like put together, like Margaret Thatcher, Prince Charles. They're 1s. You know, very, you know, like their hair. If they fell over, it looks like everything would break, but the hair. That's very. No. Trump is an 8. Trump is an 8. But so is Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama is also an 8. So so no political party can be, what's the word? Right, preferred, that's right. Because I'm a 7, I'm going to be scared that you hate me if I say it wrong, see? Okay, so actually Donald Trump, Michelle Obama, and Hillary Clinton are all 8s. Interesting, right? So, yeah, very, very interesting. So, also, Clint Eastwood is a 1. 1s also tend to have really tight musculature as well. There's a lot of physical characteristics to each of these. But he often plays an 8 in movies, right? Clint Eastwood. What's interesting is, though, a 1 playing an 8 is a very different energy from an 8 playing an 8. For instance, Jack Nicholson is an 8. Yeah. All right, so that's 8, 9, 1. So 1s, again, judge, inner judge. They're very responsible because they always want to be seen as doing the right thing. But what's underneath there is doing something bad. 1s love to get away with something. Oh, yes, especially, you know, certain things. 1s, watch out. Are there any children in here? Very, very small. Sexually, 1s tend to be very interesting. So, enjoy the book, it's what I have to say. Enjoy the book. So 9s, I didn't do this at the 9. Okay, I don't know. So just think about these 3, all these anger points, and see how they are all, mesh together. If you had an 8 that had a 9 that tended towards peacemaking, obviously that would be a core fixation of 8 that would have a 9 wing. That's not as important right now, but some people really like to know, it feels like I'm something else. What does that mean? And again, they go towards different numbers in times of stress, or in times of safety. Like the 1, for instance, goes to the 7 in times of safety. So 7 is a big risker. taking risks. Well, for the one, a one doesn't risk. It's too busy being perfect. So when you feel safe, you move more towards a 7, which is willing to risk a little. You see? So this is how they go. And then ones in times of stress get a little more neurotic and go towards a 4, which is nobody understands me. Yeah, so so 1 is kind of that perfectionist, and again, that interiorized anger itself. 2 tends to be the helper going outward to help. 3 tends to be like a performer achiever. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do, and watch me do it. Number 4 is like the artist, full of angst. Nobody understands me. I'm going to be in a corner. Please don't talk to me, but I really want you to. The 5, which is interesting. The 5 is an observer, and the 5 would rather be, in a library or at home reading a book than out and about. The 6 is like questions everything and can even question authority quite a bit, but they're always asking questions of safety and things like that. The 6 is really, as it says on the screen, core fear. 6 is all about fear and all about safety and always know where all the exits are and knows. I have a friend that's a 6, and every time we get off the phone, he says, "Be safe." I'm like, I'm just getting off the phone. I'm really good, honey. I'm good. It's okay. I'm all right. I'm okay. So, and there can also be phobic and even counterphobic, like people who really like question authority, anarchy, those can be 6s as well. And then the 7, which is my type, tends to be called the adventurer. So 7s take a lot of risk, but ultimately 7s are still scared to death. They just make their fear external, right? So 7s tend to be, we'll talk more about 7s later, but so like the 7 in stress go towards a 1, and when I'm feeling safe, like I'd love to just sit down with a book for a few hours and have no time limit. That sounds great to me. So you see how they all relate. So it's important to know what your core is so that you know what your tendencies are to check out. Because every one of these is a checkout system from not living your soul path. The scriptures say you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you what? Free. So if you don't know the truth, you are not free. You are not free. So we want to all live from a place of soul freedom and liberation rather than stuck in the confines of the earth-made ego, family system ego, right? We want to be free. So I wanted to say a few words about, from this point forward, now that you're starting to hear some of this and identify with some of it. The way you need to move forward will be really different based on your core character fixation. For instance, if you, I said last service, you may need a meditation practice. I said, but if you're a 9, you need to move. If your tendency is to be lethargic or even lazy, then you might need to make a plan and move. Make a plan and go forward. So it might be, it's like if you're an 8, it might be to try a new meditative practice. And a couple of 8s I know are big meditators, and it just helps them balance some of that energy. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I don't have to be armored all the time. See? So I want you to really, I want to really encourage you to be thoughtful as you're thinking about, and be prayerful about what's next for you. But because all these are based in anger, learning appropriate ways to express anger and appropriate body work. Like massage or yoga might be a wonderful practice, or Qigong or Tai Chi. I'm so blessed by my Tai Chi and Qigong practice. I never would have dreamed how special that would be for me. But it's like brought me back in my body in a real specific way. So I want to really encourage you as you're looking through this. What our tendency is to go to what we've always done. But if you're growing, it means something new is required of you. So really be thoughtful, prayerful even, about, given what you're learning about your character fixation, what would be a growth step for you? You know, if you're an 8, it might be to be in a place where you can learn to share your feelings, you know, without screaming them. If you're a 9, learning to share them at all. You see what I mean? So your process in this is going to look different from any other person's. And I want to encourage you, even though you're going to start to be able to type people, oh boy, there goes a 3. I'm going to encourage you not to do that, because it's just another way to check out. If you are thinking what somebody else is doing, you're caught in fixation and need to shut your mouth anyway, because it means your way and yours trying to point somebody else's. It's always that way. The one talking the loudest is the one that's the least healthy. It's always that way. If you're talking about somebody else, that is. Right? I want you to have a voice, but if you need to point out everybody else's issues, look right here.